Hey, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about something that is actually very near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about a game called StarCraft. And StarCraft has been around for almost 20 years now. The second game, which is what the focus of this talk is going to be, came out in 2010. Um, and it's on its third installment, Legacy of the Void. Now, this video is for fans of the game, so I'm not going to explain all the nuances and all the history and everything. There are plenty of web articles that go into that, particularly debating the difference between StarCraft Brood War and StarCraft 2 and its iterations. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that this camera is shaking. I don't know why it's shaking, but it shakes. What I want to talk about today is the fact that StarCraft 2 is kind of broken. Not a lot of people play it anymore, and most people have moved over to MOBAs, even Blizzard's own Heroes of the Storm, and it's just not that fun to play. And this is coming from, so a little bit about me, huge Blizzard fan, been playing Blizzard games since Warcraft 2 when I was 6. Played just about every game they've ever made, and a huge StarCraft fan. I'm by no means a pro player or anything like that. On a good day, I think I'm about a gold level player, currently with Legacy of the Void and kind of the history of StarCraft 2. But I am a software developer and a UX designer, so I care about design and gameplay mechanics and what makes something fun and good. So yeah, this talk, I just want to talk about the fact that I think StarCraft 2, as it currently is, it's okay. I mean, I still play it occasionally. It's still fun, but I just think it could be so much better. And I think it really is broken, and it could be fixed. Oh, so as we talk about this thing on the video, I wrote like this ginormous article. Please read it. I know it's kind of long, but I express my thoughts better, I think, on paper than I do verbally. So if you're interested in the state of StarCraft and maybe the future of the game, check it out. Certainly, if any of this has any merit and people like it, it'd be cool to see maybe if Blizzard takes notice as well. I just want to give shout outs to two people that everybody knows, and I'm a pretty big fan of, Day9 and Filter SC. I've been a long time like lurker, whatever, and don't post a lot on forums or whatever, but I listen to theirs quite a bit actually. Listening to Day9 for a while, and Filter SC, his whole Bronze to Master thing. It's just really good. I think those guys really care about the game and have a dedication for the game, and they understand how to solve problems. They understand how to look deeper, and I think their analysis is really spot on. So actually a lot of what this video comes out of really is from a Filter SC video. So, I know if you're watching this, that and I don't know the details, but I know that you don't do StarCraft full time, and that's fine. Like I wish you luck, and I really hope that life is treating you well. But I just want to let you know, like, I really appreciate what you did for the game and the community, as you already know, I'm sure. So, without further ado, let's continue. Okay, so here is what I think is the fundamental problem of StarCraft. Certainly StarCraft 2, certainly Legacy of the Void, possibly all of them, to be honest, even Brood War. I know that's like blasphemy. But the problem with the game is the fundamental rule of StarCraft, which Filter SC mentioned. And right, he said that the fundamental rule essentially is how much can you build and how effectively can you use what you build. And he's right. I mean, all the skill differentiators, all the stuff, that's really the main difference, right? From silver all the way up to pro, just about maybe diamond or gold master or something. Then the macro evens out and other things come to play. But up at that point, that's the biggest differentiator is just how much stuff can you build. Um, and I think that's a problem, and I'll get back to that. Certainly, within your tier, like I know when I play my fellow lowly silvers, right, some fun things can still happen because we're both at that same macro level. But having played some high level players, it is pretty frustrating because they just have more. Like, even if they do dumb things, they just have more things, so it doesn't matter what you do. And it just makes the game not fun, and it makes it, you don't want to work to improve on the game. Which is a shame because I think StarCraft, right, it's all about self improvement, and I believe that. So when we get into the solutions, I don't mean to take that away. Um, okay, but so what? Okay, so the fundamental rule of StarCraft is it really comes down to how much stuff can you build, and how effective can you use it. And I think not to put words in Filter SC's mouth, but I think what he's getting at is knowing when to attack and when to defend, when to counter, right? So that there's kind of the ebb and flow. The 10-minute mark, the 8-minute mark, when if you just killed their roaches, should you go after the hatchery or should you wait because more might be on the way and all that. But otherwise, even that I think pays second seat to just, well, if you have more stuff, it doesn't matter. The problem with it is, I said it wasn't fun. Well, why isn't it fun? I think there are two reasons why it's not fun. The first being that it's not accessible to new players, right? So you send in a new player and say, hey, play StarCraft. And, oh, well, what's the most important thing? What should I focus on? I'm like, well, you should click buttons really fast and know exactly when to build them and have super crisp build times and, just build a lot of shit. That's what? Like, what? Build time? I don't even know. I'm just clicking buttons. Ooh, this looks fun. But what looks fun, the tank, the unit, the shiny thing, well, that's not really what matters. It's just mashing on hotkeys and getting your build times, super crisp. Um, so okay, they get crushed in like 5 minutes, right? Because they don't know what they're doing, which is pretty depressing. But you keep playing the game. But then you learn the game well enough, and you realize it's stressful. So the other part of this thing is the game, in order to play it competitively, requires you to issue certain commands at specific intervals, and it punishes you severely if you're off even a little bit. And you could talk about making the skill ceiling so high and all this other crap, but like that's not fun. Like I don't want to win a game because I press buttons at the right time, and I don't want to lose a game because I didn't. I think there's so much more to the game, and it would be more fun if you won and lost based on those things. Um, so yeah, that's what I see is this super focus on forcing the player to remember a bunch of things. And just to clarify, so what I'm talking about is right building SCVs. That's probably building SCVs on point and then expanding on point is one of the most important things for your economy, right? You forget to build an SCV, you're behind. You're just immediately behind. Second, like supply depots and supply blocked, or preventing supply block, because all those things, it doesn't matter. You have this great rush, but if you're now off by 30 seconds, it doesn't matter. It's a pretty narrow window. I think the analogy would be, I mean, MOBAs, right? I think are a lot more popular, and I think they're a lot more fun because you don't have to deal with this stuff. Imagine you're playing Heroes of the Storm, and you have to send your minions, and if you don't click a button every 30 seconds to send your minions, right, your side is at a disadvantage. I mean, you could do it, right? But it's one more thing. Every 30 seconds, press the button, press the button. One more thing that you have to do. Why? Why? And yet StarCraft, it's filled with these things. Call down the mule, spawn larva, build the SCV, build the probe, build the supply depot. Um, it, it's just, it's like a memory suck. Like, there's just, when you're playing the game, there's so many things you have to focus on. You don't even get to focus on like having fun and like, oh, check out this drop or check out this thing. Until certainly you play the game a shit ton and you get to a really high level of play, right? Sure, then it's fun to watch and all that. But, and just, I don't want to sound like I'm just complaining. I understand that I'm not the best player, but like I still have fun. I still win games. I still pull off drops and fun things. And that's not what I'm getting at. I just think there's a way to make the game more fun. So by doing that, it'd be less stressful and more accessible. I think when you make a game more accessible to new players, right, that's fun for everybody. The elitist idea of, oh, you have to be a certain kind of person to play StarCraft, I think is pretty lame. I mean, that's not a good thing for the game. It's really not a good sign for the game. Um, so okay, moving on. Um, so so if my analogy is correct and filter SC's fundamental rule, build more stuff, is actually the problem with the game. That in order to fix this, you can talk about unit balance and all these things. I know like Starbow has tried to do some interesting things, but before you just got to talk about the macro mechanics of the game. And a lot of people have. I'm not the first one. You could check out their links in various places. But yeah, I think the macro game really has to change rather drastically. You don't want a game to play itself for sure, but I think there's ways to do it better. So my solution, a possible solution to kind of the problem with StarCraft, is changing the rule. So changing the rule of StarCraft. So instead of the most important thing being how much stuff can you build and how effectively can you use it, what if we change the rule and it becomes how effective can you use what you build? Okay, so that's still there, but now it's the most important thing. And then the second, though, becomes how effective you can counter your opponent. So how effective you use what you build and how effective you can counter your opponent. So the macro element, how much can you build, that is going to now become way lower. It's still important, but it's not the most important. And that's, right, a lot of games have different important, what makes the game interesting is the nuances, what's most important. So we move macro to the bottom, and now it's, you want to use what you have effectively, and you want to counter your opponent. And so what I mean by that encompasses like a lot of different things, right? One is just knowing when to attack, when to pull back. The other is micro, and can your Reaper hit the mine, the little explosion thing, right? Can your oh man, this is bad. The things that roaches evolve into and the new cannons, legacy, like, well, that's fine. I don't care that's because that's fun, right? And you get good at the micro of hitting the things or doing siege tanks and all that. And so what you'll see in a minute, the changes will free up the attention span of the player so that they can focus more on those things. And then also analogy like map control and expanding and defending those expands. So there's still a macro element to the game. It just looks different. It's more about vision and scouting and map control, not about clicking buttons at the most optimum time. I mean, right? We have computers. That's what we made them, right, to do mundane tasks for us. So why is there a game that forces us to do mundane tasks? Doesn't make sense. Um, okay, so the changes that so changing this rule, I really believe will make the game more accessible and make it less stressful. And I think those two things will then inherently make the game more fun. Um, so let's talk about how I'm going to do that. How do you achieve this? So I really think that there are um, two main changes that need to be made to the game to kind of solve the problem in the way that I propose. And so one is macro changes. We're going to get to that in a minute. And the other is actually UI and UX changes, because the current StarCraft UI is really dated. Like, it was modeled after the StarCraft 1 UI, which is from 1998, I think, and it hasn't changed much. I mean, it's more functional for sure in StarCraft 2, but it hasn't changed a lot. So we're going to talk about that too. The third option to try to solve this problem, right, would be unit balance, unit change, right? Get rid of Reapers, get rid of Oracles, make it less annoying for those kinds of things. That's another can of worms, and people have tried that, right? And I don't think anything's really worked. So this is trying to get at a deeper level of the game, making some changes, and then after that, see what unit changes would need to be made. So for now, I'm just not going to get into unit changes. Okay, macro and UI, they go hand in hand together. So we're going to talk about macro first, but know that the changes I propose, I also have a UI that fits with that. So which you'll see in a minute. I have a prototype. We're going to walk through it. It'll be great. Okay. I keep shaking this table. It's really annoying. It's probably annoying for you too. I apologize. Um, right. What was I saying? Like train of thought? I don't know. You know. Um, Macro and UI changes. I see. I have my notes. I'm reading my notes. That's when I look. Yeah. Okay. Um, right. Okay. So with the macro changes, I have three goals in mind that I'm trying to achieve. So kind of know what my goals are, and then I'll propose changes that I think would accomplish those goals. And because I know how like loving the gaming community is, you can leave all your nice comments below. Um, yeah, it was funny. I thought it was funny. Um, okay, the goals. Sorry, repeating myself. Goals. One, have the players focus on map location. I mentioned this before in the macro element. Again, instead of crisp build orders, let his focus be on scouting and positioning and expands and dropping creep or dropping towers or medevac drops or whatever it is Protoss players do. Um, uh, Second, prevent one battle game enders. So one of the really annoying things about StarCraft 2 is there's so many ways to lose, and the game punishes you so severely for any minor mistake. It's not fun. Like, so there's tons of game ender. There's just so much, right? They come in with Zerglings, and you'll have a wall game ender done. They come in with Reapers, you're ready, done. They come in, even like right an Oracle. They come in with an Oracle. They kill half your things. Then you get whatever, or you pull them back. It's not immediately a game ender, but because the game does not allow any way to catch up your econ, it's done. It doesn't matter, right? You play another 10 minutes, you might do okay, but you're pretty much done. Unless they make a mistake too. But so anyway, game matches, right, can last either 2 minutes or nearly an hour. Compare that. So just what I'm getting at. Compare that with a MOBA. Heroes of the Storm, just because that's what I play. Um, Even if you really suck, like your whole team just is awful at Heroes of the Storm, right? Which never happens, right? But hypothetically, if no one knows what they're doing, um, the game will still last like 10 minutes. I suppose you could argue that's bad, right? It's painful. But the point being, there are opportunities in Here's the Storm to catch up. Okay, and we're back. Um, Man, I totally lost my train of thought. That sucks. I gotta get a better camera setup. That's what this means. Um, right. So, in a MOBA like Heroes of the Storm, right? Even if you suck, the game is gonna last 10 minutes, more or less. I don't know what the short, maybe eight, but it's going to last a while, right? Because even a best player, the mechanic of the game is your heroes have to level up to overpower the keeps and the citadels to get to the core. Um, and it takes a certain amount of time. It just does, even if you're wiping the other team. So that makes it more fun. It actually does, even if you're losing, because if you're a new player and you're getting crushed, the game doesn't just end, so you can still learn from your mistakes, right? Like you can still play through the rest of that 10 minutes and get something out of it. Maybe you get one kill, maybe whatever. There's something there. And there's a real chance for recovery. There really is. The deaths in the early part of the game are not as significant as the latter part of the game. So both teams, there's a possibility for comeback. That makes it so much more fun to play. So much more fun. And more fun to watch. StarCraft doesn't have any of that. None, right? It's, oh, the Zerglings got in. Might as well GG, right? It's just over. Okay, so we're going to try to adjust that. And so then the third thing is, because on the other hand, though, I don't want StarCraft to be a game with an automated econ and then it's all about the micro, right? Because this isn't Warcraft 3, right? It should be a little different, and it's not a MOBA. So okay, what I think makes it StarCraft and fun is multi-front battles and simultaneous battles, battles that are happening all at once. Like, I don't know. I mean, the games that I remember, the games that are fun, is when you have two drops, one in their main, one in their expand, and you're holding them because they're attacking your base and you're trying to hold down the defenses, and you had this crazy battle. And even though they're crushing you, oh, you're in their base killing their dudes, right? So it creates all these interesting things. And then maybe both sides, the battle ends, but it's not a game winner, and both come, and then you do something else. But then if you keep, splitting your forces and doing neat things where you're crushing their econ more, you'll get the upper hand and you'll win. And so that's what I'm going to try to do, try to force. And so in order to do that, you need more expands quicker, which I think, Blizzard is trying to address with Legacy of the Void. And I think they got part of the way there. Okay, so those are the goals, right? Have the player focus be on map awareness and less game enders and more multi-front simultaneous battles. So how do we do that? Three things. First, auto build workers. Yes, like AutoCast, like it does it itself. Like you don't have to freaking worry about it. Yes. So what I mean is your main command center, as soon as the game starts, it's building SCVs. Takes 50 minerals. As long as you have the minerals, it builds an SCV. You drop an expansion, that thing will just build SCVs. Like, you still have to divvy up your workers, right? Right when you expand, you build extra and you drop them over there and all that. So it's still not automatic, like you're still playing the game, but the boring part, it just does it for you. Why do I have to remember to click to build this SCV at the perfect time? Like, who cares? I don't want to win or lose a game that way. So yeah, auto build SCVs. It makes building expansions more of a drop and forget, right? How many, I don't know, at least in my level of play, when you get to 4 or 5 expands, you forget to, make them do so. Or, they're kind of doing stuff, but it's just not efficient. Well, what if they're always building SCVs? Like that will really help. And, right, it gets rid of a skill differentiator, but it's just such a lame one. And so now the skill differentiators can be on more interesting things. Like, even if everyone has the same probe count, right? But if the one guy gets the Dark Templars in and kills half of it, well, he should have an advantage, and he will, right? But it may not be a game ender because now the other player has 50 SCVs when a novice player might otherwise only have 30. So when the Dark Templars kill 20 of them, that team still has an advantage, but it's not a game ender. It kind of solves, hypothetically, both those issues. So the other part of this, the piece of the puzzle, is workers will not take up from the 200 supply limit. None. They will actually have their own fixed 100 supply. And it starts the game, you have 100 supply, it's just there. And there's specific reasons for it. If everyone has an auto build SCV, if someone doesn't build one, it's a huge disadvantage. And so if you're supply blocked, right now the game punishes a player twice if they're supply blocked because A, you can't build anything, military or workers. Okay, well that sucks. But B, okay, because you're not building workers, your resource gather rate is now delayed. It's slower than your opponent. So it really punishes you twice. And maybe that's how it should be, and don't get supply block, noob. The game's not fun. Like, I don't want to lose because I forgot to build a freaking supply depot. It's just not fun. It's stressful, right? It's not easy for newcomers. Again, back to those points. So, if the SCVs have their own supply, what that means is you still get supply blocked, noobs, right? But it only punishes them once. Now, if you're supply blocked, yes, your military production is stopped, which can still really screw you up, right? Especially trying to rush or something. but it's not a game ender. Your econ's still fine. Your SCVs are still building. You can build new expands, drop new things, you know, like you're still going. Um, so, uh, so the last one, the macro changes, and this is sort of a unit change. I mean, back to earlier, it's kind of, I admit it's cop out, but it's a global unit change, and that is make all the structures tougher. Like everyone, like from command center to barracks, and especially towers like bunkers and missile turrets. If you can't tell, I'm a Terran player, but you know also cannon, plasma cannon, photon cannons, those things, and whatever the Zerg, you know, the air and the ground, whatever the hell those things are. They should all be tougher, and there's a reason for that. So it makes the game enders hard. So right now, if I build up a wall, it's pretty good defense. If the buildings are tougher, right, it's a really good defense. It becomes much harder to crack. Or you're in a different map or something, you drop one tower, it can last longer, you know, against 3 oracles or whatever. It won't just get destroyed. So it gives a player a way, right? So this is how it lets you keep the interesting / cheese units of an Oracle or a Reaper or a Dark Templar. Lets you keep them in the game because those are interesting. They're fun. And if you can play them well, you should have an advantage. If the guy doesn't build a tower, if he doesn't build a bunker, you should crush him. But if you do, if you are trying to defend, it's easier. It just makes it easier for the defender. And I think that's important. It means, right, it's going to be harder to win the game in 5 minutes. That's true. But when you combine it with these other things where you have larger armies because SCVs aren't taking supply and everything, well, you're going to have more stuff. So then you can crush the towers later in the game. But maybe later in the game, because everyone has auto-build SCVs, right? Everyone's got 5 bases. So sure, you crush one, but again, it's not a game ender because they still have 4 left. And I think all these things, yeah, in combination, because novice player, you're going to get more resources. There's still a skill differentiator in, you know, who can spend it, right? And I think that's fine. That's more interesting to me. Like if I have 5,000 minerals, I better be spending it. You know, building the right amount of barracks, building the right amount of, and building the right unit compositions. But I don't have to think about so many things that I used to have to think about, and I can focus on building the stuff and building the right stuff and scouting and exploring and, you know, grow to 3, 4, 5 expands much quicker than before and know that they're self-managed, and then building barracks, more of those things. So it's still, because I don't want the game to be a turtle game. That's not what I'm trying to do. But if all of a sudden you have 5 bases, well, you might forget to put a tower in one, and if the enemy is again and they scout, they might crush that expand, and it makes it, I think it'll make it more interesting. So those are the macro changes. All right, now onto the UI changes. I'm gonna, I guess, quick introduce them, and then we're gonna actually walk through it here. So the goal with the UI changes are 3 again. It's less repetitive setup, right? Every game I play, shift 4 to my command center, shift 5 my barracks. Why can't that just be set up for me before the game starts? So we'll get into that. A better way to teach players hotkeys, right? Right now, the icons are like in the lower right-hand corner. These little buttons, and they have random hotkey in the default setting, unless you go to the grid. You know, they're phonetic. I get it, but no one wants to reach that far across the keyboard. So we're going to be looking at like Heroes of the Storm and MOBAs on how to do better hotkeys in a way that will still be customizable for the advanced player, but will teach a new player to use hotkeys, I think, much faster. And then finally, just basic UI stuff, right? Now the game's 20 years newer. It's just, let's convey more information, taking up less space. So, all right, let's dive in.